Fox News pretended to be outraged over some Obama comments about the Latino vote. Take a look.
Trump winning over many Latino evangelicals from the states of Florida and Texas. But today, President Obama claimed these key voters put aside Trump's, quote, racist rhetoric because he supports their religious views. Watch.
There's a lot of evangelical Hispanics who, the fact that Trump says racist things about Mexicans or puts detainees, undocumented workers in cages, they think that's less important than the fact that, he supports their views on, gay marriage or abortion.
Joining me now, Raymond Arroyo, EWTN News Managing Editor and a Fox News contributor. He's also the author of The Spider Who Saved Christmas, which I got to get, indeed. Raymond, thank you so much for being here. As soon as I heard that sound this morning, I thought, oh my gosh. In some ways, I think maybe in his mind, a lot of things hadn't changed. But you spent time on the ground talking to Catholic voters and Hispanic voters, and that's not what you heard.
Look, Dana, this clearly shows the Democrats and Barack Obama are worried about this constituency. President Trump lost the Hispanic vote by 20 points to Hillary Clinton. With Biden, he only lost by 12. And in many of in the 100 or so Hispanic majority counties, he won those. He's increased his margins. So they're worried. But to dismiss them on their religious belief, Dana.
He didn't do that. He didn't dismiss them on their religious beliefs. He's explaining why he thinks that there were more Latinos that voted for Trump in 2020 than there were in 2016, and why, relatively speaking, he did well among Republicans. By the way, there's a little bit of misinformation out there about this issue, and honestly, Trump is part of the problem in spreading it, of course. George W. Bush actually did better with Latinos than Trump did, and George W. Bush did better in both elections. I think in one election it was only like 1% better. But in 2004, Bush got a lot more of the Latino vote than even Trump got this time. So it's not exactly true that he did the best of any Republican, but yes, he did the best with any Republican in a long time, did better than McCain, did better than Romney. But Obama's not saying this as a put down. He's saying this as a let's try to explain why there were more Latinos who voted for Trump this time around versus 2016. Now, in terms of, I like how they admit that too, by the way. There's one part where they go on to be like, well, one of the reasons is abortion. Yeah, that's what Obama's saying. I don't know if you saw that part in that clip there. I don't remember. But in the whole clip, that same guy who's pretending to be outraged admits like, well, yeah, one of the reasons is social issues. That Latinos in the aggregate are more socially conservative, and so that gives them more of a natural home in the Republican Party, and that's what Obama pointed out, and you're outraged about it. So I don't think he's not like being disrespectful. However, I will say, I do think that the theory is not exactly correct. For some, is that the case? Yes. But that's not the only reason, because if that was true, then John McCain and Mitt Romney would have also, gotten more of the Latino vote. So Obama, as usual, is giving a theory that's like half true, but it also serves his own interests and serves the interests of the Democratic elite, where they don't have to look in the mirror and they don't have to adjust. It's just a matter of like, they did what they were going to do because of this thing outside of our control. But really, my theory on why Trump got more of the Latino vote, and I read a great article about this. I forget where it was. Forget which outlet it was in, but you had like sociologists actually go and talk to these Latinos in Texas, and that's where a lot of the vote broke more for Trump there. And it was really interesting because they're, you'll be surprised to learn this, but it turns out individuals are individuals. And it really doesn't make too much sense to view people in that group sense. And so when you talk to them, they gave all different reasons depending on who it was. So, yes, for some of them, is it the Republicans are against abortion and I'm against abortion? Yes. For some of it is the Republicans are for traditional marriage, also known as against gay marriage, and I am too. Yes, that's some of it. But there's also some of it that's, it's rooted in issues that are specific to that individual. And some of it is rooted to this idea of entrepreneurship and small business ownership. Now, I would argue the Democrats don't do things that disincentivize small business ownership, but do the Republicans embrace the rhetoric more of like entrepreneurship? Yes, they embrace the rhetoric more, and some people hear that and they gravitate towards that. There's also this issue of, and this happened throughout history too, man. Like there was a time when Irish Americans and Italian Americans were not viewed as fully American, and certainly were not viewed as white. It was like they weren't fully assimilated into WASP culture, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture. And so what happens is, in a situation like that, sometimes the community makes a decision to assimilate on purpose and sort of take the jobs that would be viewed as more American. So you saw, for example, there are a lot of Irish cops in places around the country, in the Northeast in particular. There's plenty of places with Irish cops. And that was one of the jobs that they took, these civil service jobs, which then in turn made them viewed as like more American over time. And oftentimes you kind of get together with, align with the dominant culture of the society in order to feel more like part of the culture. And so now I think a very similar thing is happening with Latino Americans, where, and now you even see it, like there's distinctions that are made where there's like non-white Hispanic and white Hispanic. It's like, what does that mean? What counts as white Hispanic and non-white Hispanic? And then again, so this gets back to the cultural point where like there's plenty of Latinos who are looking to be part of the dominant, honestly, white culture. And so their politics are now more reflecting that, in the same way that the dominant white culture is very Republican and conservative. They want to be a part of that, and so their voting patterns are more in alignment with that. As I said, the entrepreneurship thing is big. But it's complicated. With a lot of people, it's very specific issues to them personally, them individually. There are a lot of Latinos who really, really don't like the nonstop identity politics that the Democrats play. And there's a universalist approach that is much more appealing to them. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why Bernie Sanders did so well. Bernie Sanders doesn't do the hollow identity politics that much. He does more of the universal social programs approach. So he did phenomenally well with Latinos, namely in Nevada. So it's complicated, man. It's complicated. And by the way, the other thing is it's kind of overstated also. It's kind of overstated just how much this is occurring. Because, okay, so Trump lost by 20 points last time. He lost by 12 points this time. It's like, yeah, there was a break towards Trump among Latinos. Is it anything to write home about? No. It's the same thing as like when people claim like there's a realignment happening and Republicans are becoming the party of the working class. My ass cheeks, son. I got news for you. Nobody's the party of the working class. The Democrats screw the working class all the time, and the Republicans screw the working class all the time. What they mean is like, hey, you have Josh Hawley every now and then saying things that are tough on trade, and you have Marco Rubio pretending now to be like tough on trade, and every now and then they'll say the words like American worker. And so the rhetoric is there, just like Trump, the rhetoric is there, but the rhetoric doesn't match the reality. They don't actually fight for economic policy that benefits the working class. So it's just optics. It's all optics in that case. So is there a real party realignment happening? No, of course not. The only adult and accurate view of politics in this country right now is that there is no party of the working class. The working class has been absolutely abandoned. Are there a few little issues here and there where the Democrats serve the working class more? Yeah. But does that make them a working class party? No. By and large, they're screwing the working class. And certainly the Republicans, in terms of how they govern, is not at all in any way, shape, or form in favor of the working class. So there is no party realignment happening. And in terms of Trump doing a little bit better with Latinos, Trump doing a little bit better with black people, that's also just the power of incumbency as well. And the fact that, it could just be that his opponent clearly is mentally and cognitively declining. And some people recognize that, and they were like, I'm not going to vote for that. So, again, it's complex. It's complicated. There's a million and one reasons why it could have happened. But Obama's answer is too simplistic and too much in service of his own ends. But Fox News getting outraged over it is just, it's obviously fake outrage. Because at one point, they even agreed with him. And they were like, yeah, well, we think it's because of abortion. Yeah, with some of them, sure. But there are plenty others where that's not the case. So, I know it's tough to talk about these issues because you really need an open-ended format like the one I have right now, because you can't really explain how complicated and nuanced and interesting it is in these little stupid Fox News sound bites where that guy who's talking has the most fake announcer voice of all time. God, I hate that so much. Oh, I hate that with every fiber of my being. The fake announcer voice. And Obama said this. Can you believe that? Disrespecting these people. Oh my God. Stop. You don't talk like that. Who wakes up? Can you imagine that guy waking up in the morning and, honey, I would like to have some coffee. Did you put the coffee pot on? The wife would be like, I'm going to go buy a pistol and blow this idiot's brain out at night. Because that is what are you doing? No human being is actually like that. No human being talks like that. Anyway, I'm just babbling now. I'm off in Nowheresville. But, yeah, there was a movement, Latinos and black people. Trump did better among them. But the other interesting part is he actually did worse among suburban whites. That's why Arizona, for example, went to Biden. Because old suburban white people with investments who are retired, they look at Trump and they're like, this guy's just not stable. And we think Biden will be a status quo guy. And we love the status quo. We love the status quo. I live on a golf course in Arizona and I play golf all the time and watch my stock portfolio go up. I want business as usual. So a lot of those people broke for Biden. So it's an interesting dynamic in the election all around is that probably the main reason Biden won is because he chipped away more at the older white people. And also probably had a lot to do with COVID, how Trump's not handling COVID well and he's just not good at governing. But anyway, yeah, I don't know why I'm still babbling. Let's end this segment right now. But there you have it. Obama, with his theory on why Latinos voted for Trump more in 2020 than they did in 2016.